There is a study everyone cites about chores. You have almost certainly seen it. The Harvard Grant Study, 75 years of research, and it found that the children who did chores became the most successful adults. I went to find that study because I wanted to read it properly. It does not exist. Not it is weaker than people say. Not it has been misinterpreted. The specific study being described, Harvard, chores, success, is not a thing that was ever published. And what is actually underneath, it is more interesting than the myth. So let me show you the whole trail. The trail leads to a real paper, a good one. 1981, George Vaillant and Caroline Vaillant in the American Journal of Psychiatry. The title is Work as a Predictor of Positive Mental Health. So far, so good. Now look at what it actually says. First, the sample. 456 inner-city men, followed from age 14 to age 47. Not Harvard students. The Harvard cohort in that research program was a different group of men entirely. This paper is about the other one. Second, the predictor. It was not chores. It was something the authors call capacity to work in childhood. That is a composite. It bundles together part-time jobs, household tasks, clubs, sports, a whole cluster of things, scored as one measure of whether a child engaged productively with the world. Chores were never separated out. The word does not appear in the abstract at all. So the sentence everyone repeats contains 3 errors stacked: wrong cohort, wrong variable, and a specific claim about chores that the study never made. Now I want to be careful, because it would be easy to make this sound like the researchers did something wrong. They did not. Their actual finding is strong, genuinely strong. Capacity to work in childhood predicted success at work in adult life, mental health at 47, and the capacity for close relationships. And here is the line that should be famous instead. In the author's own words, that childhood measure surpassed social class, surpassed multi-problem family membership, and surpassed all other childhood variables they had. That is a serious result. It is just not a result about emptying the dishwasher. The paper is fine. The retelling is what broke. There is a second citation that props this up, and this one is stranger. Almost every article on chores cites a researcher named Marty Rossman at the University of Minnesota. The claim is that she found children who did chores from age 3 or 4 became better adjusted adults. I went looking for that paper. It is not a paper. It is a press release, published in 2002 by the University of Minnesota's Extension Service, the outreach arm, not a journal. The underlying analysis had 84 participants. It was a secondary analysis of somebody else's existing dataset. And the document itself contains no statistics, not a weak statistic, not a small sample size caveat, 0 numbers. Search PubMed for it, nothing. Search Crossref, nothing. There is no peer-reviewed version, there never was. I am not saying anybody lied. A university press office wrote up an internal analysis, and the internet turned it into a study for 20 years. Now, the part where I have to be honest about my own process. While I was checking Rossman, a search tool told me that the analysis had controlled for socioeconomic status, family structure, and education. That would have mattered a lot. If those were controlled for, the claim gets considerably stronger. So I opened the actual document to find that sentence. It is not in there. That sentence does not exist in the source. Something generated a description of the methodology that sounded exactly like what a real paper would say, and it was not true. I want to sit on that for a second, because it is the most dangerous thing in this whole video. Wrong numbers are easy to catch. A wrong sentence about method is not, because it sounds like housekeeping. It sounds boring and technical, and therefore credible. If I had not opened the file, I would have told you that an 84-person press release with no statistics had controlled for confounders. I would have upgraded a leaflet into a study, on camera, while making a video about people upgrading leaflets into studies. 2 more numbers, quickly, since they travel with this claim. You will see a figure saying something like 82% of adults did chores as children, but only 28% make their own children do them. That comes from an opinion poll conducted in 2014. It is a survey of what people say they remember, not a study of outcomes. And there is a widely quoted line about the percentage of families assigning chores dropping year over year. That one traces to a poll commissioned by Whirlpool, the appliance company. I am not going to pretend that settles anything about the numbers themselves. Funded research can be perfectly good research, but when a washing machine manufacturer commissions the survey that tells you your children should be doing more household work, you are entitled to notice. So is there any real evidence about chores? Yes, and nobody quotes it because it is modest. 2019, White and colleagues. They used a large national data set with nearly 10,000 children, following them over time. Children who did chores in kindergarten showed somewhat higher self-competence in third grade. The odds ratios were around 1.17 to 1.27. That is a small effect, a real one measured properly in a big sample and small. Notice also what the outcome is. Self-competence in a third grader, not income at 40, not career success, not mental health in middle age. That is the honest version. Chores in early childhood are associated with a modest bump in how capable a young child feels a few years later. And one limit that I think matters more than the effect size. There is no randomized trial of chores, no twin study, no adoption study, nothing genetically informed. I looked and I could not find any. Which means nobody has separated chores from the households that assign them. Families who give a 5-year-old regular responsibilities differ from families who do not, in routine, in expectations, in how much structure the week has, in a dozen things a survey never records. So even that small real effect might be the chores, or it might be the kind of household where chores happen. Nobody knows. And nobody knows is a legitimate finding that almost never makes it into a parenting article because it does not fit in a headline. So what is left standing after all that? The Harvard chores study is not a real thing. The paper underneath it is real, is good, studied a different group of men, and measured something broader than chores. The Minnesota study is a press release with no numbers in it. The percentages in the articles are opinion polls, one of them paid for by an appliance company. And the actual research says, a small association on a child-level outcome with the causal question completely open. Should your child do chores? Probably, and not because of any of this. Households run on shared work and children live in households. That is an argument from how a family works, not from a longitudinal study, and I think it is a better argument. What I would drop is the promise. Nobody has shown that the dishes at 6 become the salary at 40. I want to end on why I picked this claim. It is not because chores are important. It is because this is the cleanest example I have found of how a claim gets built. A solid paper about something broad, a press office summary, a journalist compressing it, a blog compressing the journalist, and 20 years later, a sentence that is confident, specific, memorable, and wrong in 3 separate places at once. Nobody in that chain committed fraud. Every step was a small, reasonable-looking compression. That is how most bad parenting advice is made, not by liars, by repetition. And the only defense is the boring one. Go and open the actual paper, which is what this channel is. That is what this channel is for. One claim, traced to where it actually came from, including the parts that weaken it, and including the part where I nearly got it wrong myself. If we get one wrong, tell us. We will fix it in public with our name on the correction. Every source named here is in the description.